Okay, let's get started. For any candidate that's just arriving, just have a seat up here, please, if you would. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Patricia Doria, and I'm on the board of the Keystone Neighborhood Association and past president. I'd like to welcome all of you here tonight for this candidate forum and thank Pastor Cummins for the use of his church, and thank Everett Ives, president of Beacon Hill Neighborhood Association, who partnered in with us to do this, as well as Cosima from Beacon Hill for helping us from State Representative Mike Villarreal's office, send out the word. And we also would like to thank the League of Women Voters who are here tonight, who will be facilitating this forum. So we're going to now get started, and I will like to introduce Ms. Ingram, and she is the president of the League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you all for coming out this evening. I wanted to just welcome you on behalf of the League of Women Voters. Some of you I saw last Tuesday at another candidate forum, and hopefully there'll be more candidate forums that we'll see you with before the end of the month. I wanted to just go over the format for this evening. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. The congressional candidates will have one 2-minute question and then a minute for a closing statement. The other candidates will have a 1-minute opening statement, 1 minute for the question, and a 1-minute closing. And depending on how quickly we move along, we may be able to get in more questions, but that's the format for right now because there are 40 of you, and we want to be out of the sanctuary before the church holds their service on Sunday. So I will be sitting where Gloria Saldana is sitting right now, and I will be the timer. I'll hold up a yellow folder when you have 20 seconds left. I will hold up a red folder at the end of your 2 minutes or 1 minute. And then you will stop, or I will yell. So with that, I would like to thank you again for coming and introduce to you a person that many of you probably already know, Margaret Morellis, who is a League member for a long time and will be the moderator this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Oh, wow, this is, I hope y'all are tall enough to reach this. Before we begin, I understand the pastor of the Huisach Baptist Church would like to come and say a few, no? Yes. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, that's what they told me, so that's why I'm...
Take a deep breath. This is important. And so, whether you worship in one of the ancient Spanish missions, a metropolitan synagogue, a regional mosque, a storefront church, a mega church, this place, or that place down Woodlawn, oh God, you call us all, left, right, Hispanic, Anglo, gay, straight, to work for the common good, a good that transcends our local, needy, parochial interests. So help us catch our breath. Help us give thanks to these amazing, dedicated citizens who put community ahead of self, and then help us make wise choices for all your people and for the common good. In the name of the God who created and still creates, who loves and still redeems, who comforts and always challenges, Amen. And the people said, Amen. Take a deep breath. Here they come.
Thank you. Okay. Again, good evening and welcome. My name is Margaret Mireles, and thank you for all the candidates for being here. I know you have a busy schedule and you're trying to get to a million places before the actual election day. And thank you to the audience for taking time out of your busy schedule to come. We will begin with the congressional candidates first. Let me review again. You will have 1 minute opening statement. Then we will have 1 or 2 questions where you will have 2 minutes to answer. And then you will have your closing statement 1 minute. So that's where the 1, 2, 1 comes. Does that make sense? Okay. Because we do have a lot of candidates this evening. We want to try to get to everyone. All right, I believe we should have Mr. Llyod Doggett up here, Ms. Sylvia Romo, Maria Luisa Alvarado, Roark, and John Yoggerst. If you would like to come up, please, so we can start the questioning. And we are getting questions from the audience. So I believe, okay. There are many questions, but like I said, we're going to ask only 1 or 2, and they'll all get the same question. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move over here so that you all can answer over here. Okay,
So who's going first?
According to the schedule here, the list that they gave me, Mr. Doggett first. You can respond there.
Right
Thank
here?
you. Mm-hmm.
With this one?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is a question from the audience. My neighborhood is bordered on 2 sides by Union Pacific rail lines. What can you do to help us interface with Union Pacific and bring them to the table as community partners? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. And will you be asking the same questions
Yes.
of each of us?
Yes.
And after I do
Same
my
question.
opening statement,
No,
we
just,
have others? I do everything
Right.
at once. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Well, fine. No, I just want to understand the ground rules. And thank you so very much, the league, Patricia, for taking the lead in this forum. I believe, you know. All right. How about this? That's a little better, isn't it? Okay, I'll stay behind the podium then. Thank you so much for hosting this, the league, to Patricia for her leadership. I believe that you deserve accessible leadership in a member of Congress, and this district was drawn to assure you don't get it. I've worked hard over the last year to try to overcome this contrived district by meeting with as many of the neighborhood associations here in San Antonio as I possibly could. I believe this is my 3rd appearance with Beacon Hill, in addition to meetings with leadership, and I've met with Keystone previously. Sometimes it's hard to tell which district you're in. That's part of the cynicism associated with the way this district is drawn. I believe you deserve strong, effective leadership. Were I not strong and effective, I wouldn't be here tonight. Governor Perry endorsed me in a backhanded kind of way by drawing this district to eliminate me because I have been effective in standing up to him and other Republican schemes in Washington and in Austin. To overcome the obstacles he's placed in front of all of us, I need your help, and I'm here tonight to ask for your vote and your active participation in our campaign, which is headquartered out at Blue Star. Thank you.
All right, now the question. And if you would all mind, please save your applause for the end. Otherwise, we could probably be here till 10 o'clock. So thank you. All right, the question again. My neighborhood is bordered on 2 sides by Union Pacific rail lines. What can you do to help us interface with Union Pacific and bring them to the table as community partners?
Well, I assume that's a question about having a quiet zone. The city of San Antonio has taken the lead on quiet zones in the past. The cost to the city, and I made an inquiry about this, is it related to one that's about to actually be built out on the, just south of my campaign headquarters, in fact. The cost to the city is somewhere between $50,000 and a couple $100,000 to do the studies and to do the additional barriers that are necessary. Usually they do several intersections at a time to actually have a quiet zone. I will be pleased to get Union Pacific and city people together as well. The list at the city, I think they used some leftover bond funds for the one that they are about to begin construction on out in the south end of downtown. I'll be glad to work with Union Pacific and the city and you to assess and begin the study process that has to precede any quiet zone being set up.
Thank you, Mr. Doggett. And then we'll get the closing then.
After everybody. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Romo, opening statement first, and then the question.
Good evening. I'm Sylvia Romo, and I'm the right person at the right time for the right district. Now, I've always been the underdog in the past, and I'm still the underdog, but that doesn't mean that this race is not winnable. Congress, Washington is broken. When you have a 8 to 9% approval rate in Congress, the people are saying a message to Congress. When you're seeing other Congress people losing all over the country, then the people are saying we need new leadership, and I will provide that leadership. I have the knowledge, I have the experience, and I have the passion. I know this district, I know the people. They are me and I am them. Thank you. I ask for your vote.
Okay, now the question, Ms. Romo. You may repeat it one more time.
The same question?
The same question.
As with any kind of negotiations, whether it be business, whether it be government, whether it be the union, it takes negotiations. Now, that issue is not a federal issue, but it's going to take people coming together to negotiate. And I can be part of the negotiations to tell the Union Pacific why they need to change it, to show the neighborhoods what can be done. So it's a matter of getting together and doing the right negotiations. I've got the experience of doing negotiations. Anybody who can deal with the IRS negotiations can deal with any type, and that's it's going to take a person who can negotiate for the good of the people and the neighborhood.
Thank you. Ms. Alvarado is not here, right? Okay, Mr. Roark, opening statement first.
This one's a little easier for me due to my height. And good evening. My name is Rob Roark, and I am a Republican that is running in this district, and I'm a little bit different. I'm not your standard person that you would think of because I have not ran for office before. I work for a living. I have 15 years semiconductor experience. I currently work for a steel company as a quality inspector in New Braunfels. I moved to San Antonio in 1995. My son was born here at Methodist Women and Children's. And I moved to San Marcos in 2003. I've worked in South Austin. So I know the district back and forth, and I know all of the different areas. And yes, this is a very unique district. We have so much, but that is what is critical, is that we need to bring this district together. We need to look at it differently, and we need to come up with local solutions and have someone help to make sure that Washington doesn't get in the way of those solutions. I believe in common sense, I believe in the Constitution, I believe in community. My name is Rob Roark.
Thank you, Mr. Roark. Oh, did you get to answer the question?
No, I'll go on ahead with that. Okay, and I agree with Sylvia, is that this is not a federal issue, but it is going to involve many layers of government. And that is exactly what your representative is here for. Your representative is not to be up in Washington doing all sorts of legislation and moving all the levers. He needs to be back here, helping the communities to grow so that you have jobs, you have good quality of life, but that the government is not in the way. And we need to be able to break down those barriers. Yes, quiet zones are good. We're implementing those in San Marcos right now, but you are also dealing with a business and you are dealing with various people that need to come together to help the community.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roark. Mr. Yoggerst? Yoggerst.
Thank you. Houston, we have a problem. The federal budget is so far off course that we may never recover. So are the county, state, and local budgets and all the school districts. If Congress doubled the personal income tax that's collected by the IRS, we'd still have a deficit. It's going to be painful to get out of this financial situation we're in, and what I'd like to do is go through points that I think might help us. First, I would allow the Bush tax cuts to lapse. It's pandering. I'd stop the Social Security tax holiday. We're taking money out of a long-term fund that needs to be paid into it. It's just borrowing from one hand to feed another. And I would reduce spending to the 2008 actual levels and forget this baseline budgeting stuff. I'd also do my best to stop the polarization that's splitting this country. If we don't stop it, it may well be too late, and I'll do everything I can next time.
All right, sir, you can answer the question about the Union Pacific. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I have very little knowledge other than I tried to get a driveway across Union Pacific right away. Good luck. Dealing with the railroad is probably the most difficult thing you're going to do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the next question, and this is for everyone. Mr. Doggett.
Sorry, excuse me. You ready for close?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the next question.
Next question, okay. And how much
And
time
then,
do we have on these?
2 minutes for
2
the
minutes,
question.
okay, thank you.
How do you plan to work for the district's interest with a climate of polarization in the House?
Well, first let me tell you how I don't plan to work. We could get complete agreement on the issue of Social Security if we just privatize it. We could get complete agreement on Medicare if we would just agree to the voucher program. I think those are fundamental good programs that we should not yield on. Yes, we should be looking for ways to strengthen them. We ought to be making changes such as requiring that there be negotiation on pharmaceutical prices, just as we do for our veterans, to try to make pharmaceuticals more available and cost the taxpayer less as well. I think we saw a good example of the difficulties we face on ending that polarization last week in Indiana, when a respected senator, and now that the election's over with him, I can say a personal friend, Dick Lugar, was defeated because he was viewed as too reasonable, too willing to work with others. Unless there is a willingness to work on both sides, that polarization will continue, because some of what is called polarization may be just mean-spiritedness and argumentativeness, but some of it relates to basic differences about the future of this country. I believe that we need to get our long-term debt under control, but I don't think we solve our federal debt problems by placing more burden on our seniors and asking only the most vulnerable to bear all the costs. Last week, I was up there late, past midnight, because the Republicans insisted that they would cut a principal funding, a major funding source for Meals on Wheels in this county. I think that's a mistake. I will be glad to work with Republicans. I just sponsored successfully a new child welfare law with the co-chair of, or the chair of the subcommittee that I serve as the top Democrat on. There are some areas to work together, but on fundamental things like public education, protecting the social safety net, and retirement security, I will not yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doggett. Ms. Romo?
Congress is acting like a couple going through a divorce. The Republicans think they're right, the Democrats think they're right, and the people are suffering. Common ground needs to be found. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to compromise our core values, but that means that in order to make sure that the people, you, me, are being taken care of, that we put our egos aside, and let's start finding some common ground. We're all humans, regardless of whether you're an R or a D. We have common ground. We all have children. We all want the future of our kids to be better than what we have. Now, I have a history of working well. As a former state legislator, I was able to find common ground. When I talked to the Republicans, I showed them their perspective. When I talked to the Democrats, I showed them that perspective. And we were able to have a win-win situation. We have got to stop this polarization, and I intend to be there and make sure that you, the public, the voters, are going to be taken care of, that our children are going to be taken care of. And let's find common ground. We all care about our future. We all care about our children. There are many things that we can find together. Just remember, don't compromise your core values. There is a solution, and I can bring it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romo. Mr. Roark?
This isn't about the color of our skin. This isn't about whether you're Democrat, Republican, on the right or the left. It's about what your core beliefs are, and it's about the future. I agree with Sylvia. This is not about the majority of us in the room. This is about our children, and this is about the future. And we have to look at this. As a parent, I have to rise above what my feelings are so much of the time, and I have to take a different approach. And that's what it's going to take, is us getting past this. But there are certain core values, and there's core beliefs that I'm going to fight for, and I'm going to hold the line. So, Doggett, I disagree with you that it's all about the funding all the time. I volunteer every week on a Wednesday night with the local food bank in Hays County. I serve about 200 different families that are out in heavily Hispanic, heavily poor areas along the Caldwell-Hays County border. And I know what these people are going through. But we receive private funding, and with the downturn, people have dug deeper. The county has had to cut back, but we've had more private donations. There are ways to find that. And that's what this is about, is that we have to stop looking at that give and take, that it's all one or it's all the other. There are alternatives, and I believe there's common sense solutions that we can find here in our district.
Thank you, Mr. Roark. Mr. Yoggerst?
Polarization. I'm a Republican. One of my ex-wives was a member of the State Democratic Executive Committee. I know how to work with Democrats and Republicans. I honestly think I could work with the congressman, but I hope you'll give me the opportunity to replace him. I think that the one place we differ is that I think you got to have the money to pay for what you're spending. And I don't think we can cut unilaterally like a lot of people on the Republican extreme, or spend unmitigatedly like a lot of people on the extreme Democratic side. We've got to find a common ground, and I think I'm the person to do that. I know how to balance a budget. I know how to make a payroll. And the first thing we have to do is get our financial house in order before it's too late. And if you will check my website, you'll see that this will be posted, some of the ideas that I have. I have no pledges with any group whatsoever. I refuse to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoggerst. We have one more question, and you will only have 1 minute to answer this one. Mr. Doggett. In view of President Obama's endorsement of same-sex marriage, would you support or oppose congressional legislation that would prohibit federal funds to states that do not officially recognize same-sex marriage?
To deny states money?
Yes, would you prohibit federal funds to states?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm celebrating my 43rd year of marriage. And I recognize that all families are not exactly like mine, and I support the concept of recognizing all loving relationships and showing them respect. But the idea that because a state takes that position in a constitutional amendment, as some states have done, that they should be denied all federal funds, I would not do that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Doggett. Ms. Romo?
I definitely support Obama's stand, and I applaud him for his courage in doing that. You know, I look back and look at the 14th and the 19th Amendment. Where would we be if that hadn't been passed? I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to vote. And I think we need to, in order to make that a reality, then we do have to have some stronger language to force the people, to force those people who can make that decision to do the right thing. And I would support that provision.
Thank you, Ms. Romo. Mr. Roark?
I believe marriage needs to stay here in the church. I don't believe that it is up to the federal government to get involved in determining whether it is between a man and a woman. That is a church issue there. But I definitely do not feel that we need to be holding over the state's heads any funding or any rights that are left up to the state. So I will agree with Mr. Doggett on this one, that the federal government should not be involved at that level. Now, I have friends that are homosexual. I have friends that are mixed marriage. I have all sorts of friends in the community, and that's part of the community. I can pick and choose who my friends are, and that's the rights that each one of you have, and that's what I'll stand up for.
Thank you, Mr. Roark. Mr. Yoggerst?
I've been taught for 67 years that marriage is between a man and a woman. I think it's wrong to call a lesbian or a gay relationship a marriage. There's a lot of other terms that can be used to describe it. It's nothing that Washington needs to interject itself into. I really believe it's a decision based on a person's beliefs, and it's just simply not anything Washington needs to be involved in.
Thank you, Mr. Yoggerst. Now, the final closing statement, Mr. Doggett.
That's for a minute?
Yes, a minute. 1 minute, yes.
Well, like so many others here tonight, I'm here applying for a job. And as you look at my job application, I hope you'll give consideration to the work that I've done. Not everyone involved in Washington is on the wrong side of things. Some of us have worked hard to see that working families get the quality of government that they deserve. Among those concerns, most important to me are education. I think we should be investing more from pre-K to post-grad. I've successfully sponsored legislation to open more opportunities for young people to attend the Alamo colleges, UTSA, and yes, as a Longhorn, even Texas A&M. I believe that our future economic power depends on the ability of our getting more educational opportunity. I've been to a number of forums. Fortunately, each of them that has made an endorsement in this race has endorsed me. Among those endorsements is the San Antonio Police Officers Association, and I appreciate their support. I think public safety and my ability to work with them is important to each of these neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doggett. Ms. Romo?
When are we going to pivot to the idea that our representation, that our empowerment should be based on our population? If we look at the composition of Congress, it looks like an exclusive private club. Out of 435 Congresspeople, there's only 76 women. Out of 435, there's only 26 Latinos. Out of 435, there's only 42 African Americans. Out of 435, there's only 7 Latinas. Out of 435, there's only 8 CPAs. We need more financial people like myself, because next year is going to be a banner year for the tax code, and I need to be there to make sure there's no smoke and mirrors. I ask for your support. I am the right person at the right time for the right district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romo. Mr. Roark?
Well, early voting that started today, that will go for the next 2 weeks, and voting on the 29th is going to decide 2 things. Who is going to represent the Republican Party? Who is going to represent the Democratic Party? My race is the Republican race, and I believe that I am the best choice to represent the Republican Party and to represent all of the community in the fall. No, I don't have $3 million, that has been collected for this race. I believe in getting out there and knocking on doors. I believe in doing it very inexpensive, because that's my core beliefs. Government is not about the money. The races should not be about the money. They should be about who best represents you. To go up to Washington, to take a new approach, and that can take a common sense approach that believes in the Constitution and that believes in the community. My name is Rob Roark. I am on the Republican ballot. Please tell your neighbors about my race, RR, the number 4 Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roark. Mr. Yoggerst?
If you vote to send me to Nineveh on the Potomac, I'll make your voices heard in Washington. I won't feed you politically correct BS, because we don't have time for that. We've got serious issues facing this country, and I think I have some serious solutions. I'm John Yoggerst, and I would be honored to be the first representative, your representative, from this new congressional district. Please visit my website, yoggerstforcongress.com, and I didn't bring yard signs in, but if you'll contact me, I'll get whatever you need. And if you do visit my website, there's a button that says Donate, it's secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoggerst. And thank you to the audience for the questions, and thank you for candidates for coming. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have two questions. Yeah, I'm going to announce. Thank you. Now, the next group will be the tax assessor candidates. If you can come forward, please. Mr. Castro, Ernesto Castro, Gerard Ponce, Albert Uresti, Jose Pablo Arzola, and Robert Stovall.